Hey everybody, this is Dan Bova from Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us for another installment of Ask Mark. It's been a while, so we're so happy to see so many people have signed on. As always, we're going to have Mr. Mark Randolph in the hot seat. Mark, as you know, is the co-founder and founding CEO of Netflix and is here to answer your questions live. Mark has mentored hundreds of early stage entrepreneurs. He hosts the That Will Never Work podcast and is a regular cast member of our show, Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch, which is going to start filming the new season soon. So be on the lookout for that. We've got a number of questions that already got sent in through social media, but please pop any questions you have into the chat and we'll get to as many as we can as we roll along. All right, Mark, you ready?
I'm all ready, Dan. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent, excellent. Mark, if only these people could see what's going on in our private chat.
Well, yeah, we were just debating all the colorful names people use for paint colors. I think
Yes,
people
exactly.
quite creative.
Yes, yes. Well, Mark, we are psyched to have you. We got some great questions. We got a lot of people on the line, so let's get to it. I'm going to start with a pretty good one. So this comes from Owami, who's asking, do you have any tips for what should be included in a strong business plan?
Oh, yeah, good. It's actually a great question. I get a lot of questions from people about business plans. And I always give them the same advice, and I'll pass it on to you. So, for the business plan, first of all, you want to make sure that you have, sections on market size. You want to have your go-to-market strategy, maybe your tech stack. You certainly want to have some points about financing. What you then want to do is make sure you have the whole thing with nice, neat sections. You want to be double spaced, good margins. Print it all out, and then throw that thing in the garbage, because it is the biggest waste of time I've ever seen. And so do not write a business plan. I mean, I have never seen a company follow its business plan. I mean, if you're a startup, you have no clue what's going to happen. So all that time you put into trying to figure out what the future holds and prepare for it is almost always wasted. I mean, I'm not saying don't think some things through. So you can tell, hopefully, that I'm being a little bit of tongue in cheek here. But if you've had experience in a business, maybe take any size business, all of them put in place a sales plan, and they announce they have a new budget, and it comes out in January to great fanfare. And then the whole thing is off by March or April, and it's absolutely in the garbage by the summer or the fall. You get the idea. We're all entrepreneurs, which means our skill set is not trying to predict the future. Our skill set is putting ourselves in a position to respond to whatever the future throws at us. And so business planning is not just a waste of time, but it forces you to get out of that and to begin to think what has to happen. You try and think of all the contingencies. You get the idea. In other words, I'm very, very cynical about business plans. And I actually feel very, very similar about when people pitch me business plan-like decks where they know exactly what is going to be happening for the next 2 or 3 years. And all I can think to myself is, no, you don't. And the fact that you think you do really scares me. So there you have it. My tip for a good business plan, don't do one.
Don't do one. All right. Well, I think you just saved people a lot of time. Not easy to put a business plan together. Are there other things like that when people walk into a pitch with you where you're just like, what did you spend hours or days or weeks on this thing that I'm not even going to look at?
Well, certainly, I mean, it's certainly almost a running joke among every single investors is, of course, the hockey stick situation. And we all know what that is, but it's this feeling that, oh my gosh, as soon as we start, just imagine what's going to happen. And it's done by basically multiplying your market share. You say, just, wow, we'll start off and we'll have this, and then it will double, then it will double again, then it will double again. And of course, no, my gosh, look how much revenue we have in 3 or 4 years. And that really lets people know how inexperienced you are, because it never works out like that. And what you either need to do is present what you think is a realistic case for what the growth of your business will be, or more likely realize that no one's going to really pay a lot of attention to that, because we all recognize that, what's the expression in boxing? Every plan goes at the window as soon as you get punched in the head. And certainly starting a business is
Yes.
no different.
Yeah.
It's a classic one. The other one I love, which again, if you're saying this one, stop it, is, oh my gosh, it's a total addressable market of fill in the blank, how many $1 billion it is. All we need is 1%. Yeah, good luck with getting 1%. Start from ground up. Say, what happens? I need to get my first 10 customers. I need to get my first 100 customers. And then I'll know a little bit about what it takes to get a customer, how long they last, how much they contribute. Then you can begin to put in place some sort of framework of what you think you might be able to generate in revenue. But it's almost impossible to do that before you actually have real metrics.
Wonderful. That's great. And we're getting a couple of questions along the same theme of talking to your customers, finding out what they actually want versus what you think they want. Do you have any, best methods for doing that? How do you reach people, especially if it's a niche market? How do you get to them? How do you know you're getting to them?
Yes, there's a lot of interesting points to this, Dan. I mean, getting that validation from real people is key. I mean, I often say that the most important thing you can do when you have this idea is figure out the fastest, quickest, and cheapest way you can to collide that idea with a real person. And you start doing that even before you have a product. And people think, how do I find this? And the answer is you've got to be creative and clever. I mean, if you've got a product that dentists might buy, well, talk to your own dentist, talk to your friend's dentist, go cold call dentists, go to an office park and knock on doors of dentists. I mean, find people who truly are the audience and engage them in a conversation. Show them your product. I do a lot of work with these young entrepreneur programs. And when they come up with an idea, I go, let's mock this up. And now we're going to do some customer intercepts. Now, of course, you can hire firms who will bing audiences and bump them in, or you can go into a supermarket and you can linger in the aisle where your product might be sold. And when you see someone walking up, grab them and ask them a question you want to ask them. There's someone right at the point of buying macaroni and cheese. Ask them what they think of this idea you have for a new formulation for macaroni and cheese. Or even better, fake the box. And when no one's looking, stick it on the shelf and just stand there and watch what happens when someone walks by and looks at it. And what's going to happen? They're going to go, the guy from the supermarket's going to kick you out. Okay, big deal. You go to a different supermarket. In other words, you've got to be clever, but you've got to find real people to collide your idea with. I mean, being an entrepreneur is how clever you can be. And it's not how clever your ideas are. It's how clever you can be about figuring out quick, cheap, and easy ways to collide them with real people. And if you want it, one more thing, Dan, get me back to that full screen. Come on. All right, there we go. So it gets me rolling. The other thing is when you begin doing survey work, let's say you're saying, I'm really going to make an effort to call and try and talk to 50 people who are in charge of purchasing at corporations of this size to find out about this particular thing I'm trying to sell. You are not doing statistical research. You are not looking for a statistically relevant result. You're looking for opinion. You're looking for a hunch. You're looking to calibrate your intuition. And so when someone says something which goes off what you've been hearing, forget your little question and answer. Take the tangent. Why did you say that? Well, tell me why you believe that. What experience have you had with that being true? In other words, use this opportunity to inform your intuition. Customers are not going to give you the answer. They're going to let you have the intuition about what you need to do. And one of the things that I used to do all the time, because there's a period there where I was kind of changing jobs every 9 months to a year, and I'd get plunged into a category I knew nothing about. And I had to get my intuition up to speed. And so what I would do is I would take tech support calls. I would take customer service calls. I'd go there with the headset on and I'd spend a full day just taking phone calls and hearing what people who actually owned the product were thinking and feeling. And I'd use the opportunity to ask them questions. And it was an amazing way, because after you've done 30, 40, 50 calls, all of a sudden you begin to recognize, oh, there's really two different types of customers. Some of them are this, some of that. The ones who are here, they seem to like this. The ones who are here like that. It's an amazing thing. There's no substitute for getting out and building your intuition for your market, for your product, for your customer.
Fantastic. Can we share the screen again? Is that okay?
Oh yeah, yeah, Dan, come on. In fact, if you want to take a little time with full screen, I don't want to be greedy here.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great segue to this question, which comes from an email that's I'm not sure. Anyway, that's not the point. The question is, what skills do we need to be a good business owner? So, having great ideas is one thing, but actually running a company and colliding with people, as you described, it seems like they're two different things, not exactly the same skill set.
Well, the skills you need are not universal. And so depending upon the type of business owner you are, it's going to differ. I mean, even just looking at myself, I'll be immodest for a second. I'm really good at really early stage companies. The types of problems they have, the fact they're trying to discover what is their product, what is their market, what is their customer, the fact that you have to be a jack of all trades, which are all skills that are important for a small business, are very, very different skills needed in a big business. And it turns out that I'm terrible at big businesses, and I'm not only not good at it, I don't like it very much. So in other words, it's not one size fits all. So I will talk about small business concerns. And I'll say, number one, don't run out of money. That's your job. Without money, you're dead. And whether that's positive cash flow, which is your responsibility, which is probably the best possible way to achieve it, that's great. If you're borrowing money, that's important. If you're raising money, it's critical. But you always have to keep one eye on how much gas is in your tank, because as soon as that's gone, no matter how great your employees are, no matter how great your product is, you're toast. A second thing is you'll quickly learn you can't do it by yourself. And so it's a critical skill to learn the people management skills that go into being a business owner. And part of that is the hiring. And hiring is the wrong term. It's really the attracting really talented people and having them have really appropriate reasons why they want to work with you, not for you, and help you make your business successful. And so it's finding those people, it's finding out what makes them tick, what makes them want to come. And then how do you keep them productive? How are you transparent enough so they understand what the objectives are without you having to be explicit about the direction? How do you make it clear that they're part of this? How do you give them autonomy? And then most importantly, how do you do this in a way that suits your particular management style and do it in a way which is situationally appropriate? It's tricky, but I'd say if you focus on that, which is if you have amazing people and you're making sure you're not running out of money, you're probably 75% of the way there.
Excellent. Well, speaking of money, we had a question that came in from Chandra. How do you judge how much debt to take on when you're a startup?
Oh, it's a good question. So I'm going to split it into two parts. One question that gets asked a lot is, should I do debt or should I raise equity? In other words, should I borrow money, which I'm going to have to pay back, but which doesn't dilute me? Or should I take equity, which is wonderful. Once the money comes in, I don't need to pay it back, but now I have to give away some percentage of my company to get it. And so the first evaluation you have to say is, which of those two better suits what I need? I'm assuming you've already made the decision you need to get money from an external source, that you can't self-fund, you can't be scrappy, you can't do it with a friends and family, injection. And you ask yourself the question at this particular point in time, which is more dear to me? Which is more valuable to the company? money, cash, or equity. And usually in a very early stage company, wow, cash is so much more precious. You have so little of it. It needs to last you until some indeterminate point. It's really hard to get more. And so take the cash and give away the equity, of which you've got a ton of it. And it's way, way better to have 90% of something which has the money to pursue its goal than it is to have 100% of a company which is going broke. Now, maybe later in your life or earlier, if you're lucky enough to have positive cash flow, or you're not as worried about cash, or you're so successful, everyone's throwing money at you, then debt is a great way to finance things because it's non-dilutive. And that you can take the debt. You recognize that you have the future cash flows to pay it back. And it's a great way to leverage the speed of your company. Generally, and the third category I'd say is sometimes you can get loans which are pretty cushy. Government loans, small business association, small business loans. But my general feeling is early stage companies are better off raising debt than raising equity than doing debt. You just do not need that that hangover on you. And then the question of how much debt do you take on? If you do that, almost always, whether it's debt or equity, you need to take on enough money that you can get to the next proof point. And that will change each time. So if you're just starting out, it's, is my idea real? If you're doing a technology product, can I solve the technology problem? Once you've solved that and you're raising money, now you're saying I'm raising enough money to get to the point that I can prove customers want this. Once you've done that, now you go, I need to raise enough money to get to the next proof point, which might be, can I scale a sales force? The next proof point be, well, it works in the United States. Can I make it work internationally? But you always need to have that clear picture in mind and then back into how much will it take to get me there, and then factor it up by 30% to recognize the fact that you're going to get it wrong.
Wonderful. So we've had a couple of questions about co-founders, and someone who's watching right now, Abi Ali, she says, he says, feel like I'm not aligned with another coworker or close friend. So he's looking for advice on managing what sounds like a pretty sticky situation.
Yeah, it is a tough one because in many ways, having a co-founder is like being in a marriage. I mean, it is the two of you or three of you against the world. And you have to be able to trust that person, and that person has to be able to know what would Mark do. You have to recognize you're going to divide and conquer, and you're not going to be able to judge what they're working on. It's really, really tricky. And I see co-founder problems all the time. I mean, I joke about it somewhat because, I do a lot of mentoring. I have a number of teams that I work with. And when I started doing mentoring, 15 plus years ago, I thought all the questions were going to be about, the technology stack or the go-to-market strategy or fundraising. And it's amazing how much of what I do as a mentor is marriage counseling. It's how do you work out differences between co-founders, especially if you're doing a tech startup where you have a business side co-founder usually, and then a tech side co-founder. And it's like one's from Mars and one's from Venus. The business guy's going, hustle, hustle, hustle. And the tech person is rolling in at 11 o'clock in the morning and taking an hour break for massage, but then working all night. It's like, how do you get these two things to align? The only thing I can say is two things. So to you, who is in this situation already, you got to have the hard talk. You've got to say now that this is not working, and here's what we have to do to make this work. You have to be willing to say, maybe we should walk away. You have to be willing to say, maybe I'll buy you out. Or you've got to say, let's do what we have to do. Let's get a marriage counselor. Let's find someone to come in and work with us so that we can communicate better. But boy, don't let it fester. If you think, if I just wait long enough, eventually the problem will go away, you're absolutely wrong. It gets worse and worse. It gets worse and worse and worse. Famously, if you've read my book, which of course I hope you all have, there was a time when, Reed came in and said to me, he goes, I'm concerned about your judgment. We're going through this growth period and you're making a lot of mistakes. And we talked for a long time about what we might be able to do to fix this. But fundamentally, he said, listen, if we need to, we can sell the company and divide it up and go home. But let's not have anything festering. And it's a critical thing. Going in, before you start, for those of you out there who have not started yet, have the talk before you start. The worst thing I see is someone goes, I know, we'll both be co-CEOs. And that's one thing, if you've deeply thought through and analyzed the 2 companies out of 1 million which successfully have co-CEOs and go, we can do that. It's another thing, which is usually the case, where, well, we can't decide which one of us gets to be the CEO, and so we will just avoid it altogether. And you punt it down the road. And believe me, if it's a challenge having that discussion when you have no employees, no product, and no money, believe me, it's 1,000,000 times harder when you have product and you have money and you have people. Work it out.
You're getting a lot of head nods in the chat. All right, I think we got time for maybe 2 more. This question, I think, from Miles Lane really gets to the heart of the matter. I want to get rich. What do I do?
Take 10% of your paycheck every month and put it into an index fund or into a interest-bearing bond, and do it every single month. And if you are 20, you do the calculation. You do not need to be much money, and you'll be a millionaire by the time you're 40. Okay, that's the simple, predictable way. It is not doing what I do. It is not doing what everyone who's in the chat wants to do. If you want to be an entrepreneur because you want to be rich, you are in for some disappointment. Yes, it's possible to become phenomenally rich, but the same way it's saying, I'm going to be an actor and actress because I want to be super famous. Well, you're not going to be super famous. You're going to end up working in a restaurant in Hollywood. You get my point here. There's predictable ways to make money, and it's not by doing this. Do this because you love it. Do this because you love solving really cool problems. Do this because you love coming to work every day and working on some entirely different thing. Do this because it's amazing people and it's exciting and challenging. All the reasons that I've been an entrepreneur for 40 years. And I promise I never, not once, did it because I thought that I would make a lot of money at it. I mean, I was lucky that I started at a time when no one talked about it. And I know it's way, way, way harder for you because you are seeping in all this media attention, which is correlating. Successful entrepreneurs are all Elon Musk, richest guys in the world. But that's the wrong reason. You'll be unhappy about it. Go into it because it's fun. If you try and pick businesses because you're trying to pick which is most likely to be successful, it's like flipping a coin. You have no idea. You just got to do something. And if you're lucky and if you're work hard and you're persistent, you'll make a good living at it. And if you're exceptionally lucky, you'll make a lot of money at it. But that's just the roll of the dice. So there's huge amounts of survivor bias. I mean, you hear from people like me, and yes, I made a lot of money at this. And you hear from other people, but that's all you hear from. But you don't get to hear from the tens of thousands of millions of people who love what they do and make a decent living, but they're not super rich. So sorry. All right, get off my soapbox here. I just feel so passionate about this.
That's great. That's great. So let's end with a 2-part question, and the 2 parts have nothing to do with each other. So part 1 is a lot of people are asking, when are we going to get another book from Mark? Part 2 is, and I think we could end on a real rah-rah note here. So this is from John Kenneth. He sent this in. When you're on elevator pitch, what are the 3 qualities or more or less that you look for in an entrepreneur that makes you say, I want to support this person's business?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And queuing up I'm flying to Miami next week to film season 8. So keep your eyes open. What resonates is, number 1, do they know their shit? And it's really obvious whether people do or not. And I'm not looking for, do you know your shit that you learned on Wikipedia, which is, this is the market size and the compound annual growth. I'm going, do you know this category? You're saying, hey, I've got this great idea for a e-reader, which is going to help for education in sub-Saharan Africa. I'll go, have you worked in a business which builds e-readers? No. Have you ever been a teacher? No. Have you ever lived in sub-Saharan Africa? No. Well, what are you doing with that idea? So if someone comes in and they really know their category, goes, I've been a chef for 30 years. I have burned my hands more times than you can count. And so I've done a new, you can tell I'm going, good. So a pot, you can take it off and touch it, whatever. I go, okay, this person knows the real problems his customers are going to have. I trust him. Number two, do you have traction? Or are you honest about the fact that you don't have traction? I want to hear, what have you learned by doing it yourself? I want to hear about the non-repeatable, non-scalable experiments you've been running. I want you to say, I've been doing this now for 8 months. I've been running this whole business on rubber bands and 3x5 cards. I am going home every single night and doing all these calculations that I know the AI can do once they get it built. But I now know what I need to solve because I'm doing it by hand. And more importantly, I know the customers want it. That resonates with me. And number three, this is the simplest one, probably the easiest, hardest. I want to like the person. You don't want to get involved with someone you don't like. We had one guest on season 7 who all of us are going, oh my God, this guy's amazing, but what a dick. And no one wanted to invest in someone like that. My metric is, if my phone buzzes at 11 o'clock at night, just as I'm going to bed, and I look over who it is and I wince, I made a very, very bad choice about who I work with or who I invested in. So there you have it. Know your stuff, have demonstrated that there really is traction in your business, and be a mensch.
That's fantastic. Or don't be a dick, I guess. I love that. That's fantastic. Well, I want to thank Mark. Obviously, great information as always, and great questions. Really great questions this time around. So thanks for everyone who sent them in. Sorry we didn't get to all of them in the chat, but we're doing this again, folks. So so be on the lookout. If you signed up for this, you'll get signups for more. So Mark, people can rewatch this on all of our social channels. They could take notes, or they could hear more great advice from your podcast, That Will Never Work, and your website, markrandolph.com. So thanks again, Mark. You want to any parting words? You look festive. You got the Hawaiian shirt on.
Yeah. I'm still kind of reluctantly hanging on to vacation, but yeah. All right. TikTok. There you go. Follow me there.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Mark. See you again soon.
So long. Thanks, Dan.